You will also notice it since what I'm about to communicate to you is quite special. Meaning that after viewing this, you will also think that you must watch this movie at least once. After all, we all believe we have superhuman strength. By flying anywhere we desire, we may assist people and protect them from any harm. But in reality, this is not the case because, to begin with, we lack these abilities, and if you leave as well, what will we do with them? You must be thinking that if we had such abilities, we would use them to benefit ourselves rather than others. Our film today is about three pals who inexplicably get superpowers. The title. Andrew is the name of our main character in this film. But even a fine young man would likely become depressed given the situation he is in. Even if Andrew's mother has a horrible illness like cancer, she is unable to pay for good medical care for her. He thus witnesses his mother's gradual demise each day. Firefighter Andrew's father eventually began drinking. Perhaps this explains why he beat Andrew to release his rage throughout his life. Andrew believes that this will continue to happen to him. To pass the time, he purchased a camera and began taking pictures of the world around him. But when he brings his camera to school, the students, he is also harassed there. Then turn around and use his own camera to capture his pounding. A few schoolgirls implore him to turn the camera off, because he thought they were rather odd. Andrew's sibling existed. Matt is his name, who Andrew spends the majority of his time with. He is informed by Matt that the school party is tonight. Andrew doesn't really engage with people all that much, but you have to walk in it as well. However, he was prepared to attend the event merely to make the tape. I have no idea why, but the night he went to the party, he had a peculiar attachment to the camera and believed it would capture everything properly. But the neighbor, they believed Andrew was secretly filming his girlfriend. He scares Andrew and chases him away because of this. When a classmate named Steve approaches Andrew, Andrew runs outside and begins to sob. As soon as he approaches her, Andrew stops sobbing since he has always appeared to be a strong person on the outside. Steve urges him to hurry up because they have discovered something wonderful that will be captured on tape. Steve's companions are all gone as the two of them arrive to an empty field after walking through the woods. Matt, however, who was there waiting for them, can be seen here. There was a peculiar, deep hole there that no one had ever seen before, according to their knowledge. They needed to know, in any event, whether this pit, which appears little from the outside, actually contains a large cave. Now that they have discovered some crystals inside of it, they are completely baffled by what it was. It is now. Going to him in this manner is not a sensible move, but this thing. Who was going to tell them why? As soon as they contact the crystal, it begins to flash red and all three of them begin to bleed from their noses. However, this is not implied that they were all dead. A few weeks later, we see the trio again, and he was working on honing his abilities. You might find this strange to learn, but he acquired these abilities from the same crystal. In scientific jargon, the ability to control objects with one's thoughts is known as telekinesis. That without touching anything, it may move simply by thinking about it. Powers now possessed all three, but Andrew soon mastered their use. And he may have stopped needing someone to hold his camera because of this. They all three returned to the same location. However, this time there was no hole because the nearby cave has now closed as a result of Earth sliding. They then consider what to do with their newfound abilities. They were college students. They harass the girls at their school because they can only think as far as their minds will allow them to. Harrisses the waitress in the restaurant and then enters a mall and begins tossing objects around. And since the three of them were able to accomplish it all, frightening a young child wasn't so horrible, which once was present only in there. But in this case, the line has been crossed. When they drive off the road and leave a trail of horn-blaring traffic behind them, and the poor man's automobile goes into a pond, but Steve intervenes to save the man's life. We need to establish some regulations since we are becoming stronger every day, Matt tells Andrew. First guideline. that when we are upset, rule number 2 is that we shall not use our powers against any living thing. We will thus take care of ourselves. Because of him today, a guy was prevented from passing away. This was not something Andrew intended to do. He only intended to stop him, but after that, he admits his error. He began honing his abilities in the shadow of an abandoned factory. And what was even more astounding was that Steve had mastered flying. He also instructs Andrew and Matt, who initially struggled but eventually learned to fly and balance. He no longer thought it was a huge thing to fly his body into the skies. One day, while playing basketball in the air, an airplane strikes Steve forcefully. He then begins to tumble straight down, but Andrew was fortunate enough to catch him before he hit the ground. Steve came in front of a flying plane for the first time and was overjoyed to be alive. He enjoyed these kinds of experiences a lot because flying was now something he did frequently. Even taking a flight after school, Andrew is asked by Steve, "Why don't you participate in the talent show? And now that we have telekinesis, we shall demonstrate it to them as though it were magic." They take part in the talent show the following day, and when Steve takes the stage, everyone cheers excitedly. However, as soon as Andrew's turn arrives, people begin making fun of him because he was quite well known in school. But until he used his abilities, he merely laughed, and Andrew did similar things. Everyone in the audience wondered how Andrew had suddenly become so intelligent. They could not believe what they were seeing. After that, everyone wanted to talk to Andrew, as if he had suddenly become well known at his school. Wished to be his friend, but no one realized that Andrew was using his powers rather than him. Even a girl was willing to share intimate moments with Andrew, but he consumes so much alcohol that he pukes all over the woman. He is told by Steve that it is irrelevant. However, Andrew felt so humiliated by this that he began screaming at Steve to bring powers. His inability to contain his rage following that was going to cause him a lot of problems in the future. He stumbles over a spider, kills it by cutting off its limbs, and then realizes. On the other hand, Andrew's mother's health was declining daily without medication. When Andrew's father learns about his camera, he yells at him. Since his cost was too high to conceal, his herds begin attacking him. However, as Andrew picks it up and discards it this time, Matt and Steve begin to bleed from their noses. Steve visits Andrew and wants him to walk down the aisle with him because Andrew has been abusing his powers. Despite telling Andrew to stay away from him, Andrew electrocutes Steve when he tries to. He thus passes away instantly. The body of Steve was discovered. Middle of the field, partly burned. However, Matt had his doubts about Andrew because their town had received no reports of lightning that evening. At the crematory, Andrew was also recording. He is told to stop recording by Matt. But in this instance, Andrew ignores her and walks away silently. He still feels horrible about Steve's passing, though, which is why he visits Steve's cemetery after everyone has left and offers his condolences. He then goes to school, where a boy causes him difficulty once more. And as a form of retaliation, Andrew takes out his teeth from his jaw along with their roots, and writes it down before flushing it. Andrew began to perceive himself as a top predator. Means those species that are the strongest in any system and have no problems about eliminating other species that are weaker than them. Similar to how a lion does not feel sorrow when an animal it is hunting dies. It's just in his character. Matt then visits Andrew after hurting someone once more. And none of the guidelines they jointly established were being followed by Andrew. But at this point, Andrew becomes quite irate because he was about to buy his mother some medication, and she thought I was wasting her time by explaining it to her. Andrew then goes to get the medications. The owner of the medical store then informs him that the last time, your father did not give the money. In addition, we are unable to extend you another loan in this circumstance. Because he was left with no other option except to steal, Andrew put on his father's firefighter uniform and went to rob other people. However, even if Andrew's face is hidden, they still recognize him. Andrew then assaults them and takes their money, although it was simply insufficient. So, after committing a theft at a food store, the proprietor opens fire on him. However, in a rush, Andrew points the gun at the gas station, setting off a massive explosion. When Andrew's body starts to burn, the hospital admits him right away. He also informs his father that his mother is dead when he meets him. Not in this world anymore. Even still, he assigns Andrew blame for everything. "I know you're listening," he claims. "Because of this, please accept my apology immediately." His father was going to choke Andrew when Andrew suddenly realized what was happening. He then causes another explosion in the space, while Matt's nose begins to bleed heavily. Matt tried to stop Andrew when he utilized his powers, but it was too late. Andrew knocks his father to the ground, but Matt stops him from falling, which Andrew absolutely despises, so he flings a chopper at him and hoists him up a tower with the text. There was also Matt's girlfriend in the vehicle, which begins tumbling with car. But Matt manages to safely get her out. His goal is to comprehend Andrew. He crushed Matt under a massive bus because he was so furious with him for not letting his father die. Despite being severely hurt, Matt makes every effort to stop him. However, Andrew likely lost control of himself, which is why he was constantly hurting those around him. Finally, Matt fires the arrow into Andrew's torso and through the arm of a statue behind him to put a stop to him. Andrew passes away right there. The mate is taken into custody by police, but he manages to get away. Matt reappears in the Tibetan Himalayas a few weeks later. He arrived here with Andrew's camera in tow, begins recording and offers Andrew his apologies. Andrew was obliged to travel to Tibet because of how peaceful it is there, which is why I left his camera there to take pictures of what happened even though he had no intention of doing so. Additionally, when its battery dies, that camera will also permanently vanish in the same hills. Thank you for watching. Please